Hello and welcome to Not Just Disney, and to a very special video in which we will once again be using Logacta, the 1970s football simulation game played using dice, to complete a top level football competition. Recently we have completed the FA's Premier League for the 2019 to 2020 season, and we thought, having attended to their premium level league competition, maybe we should take a look at their top level cup competition too. The last game played in the FA Cup this season so far was at Derby, and Man United were the victors there, 3-0, completing the lineup for this year's quarter-finals, which consists of 8 Premier League clubs. For the quarter-finals, 4 teams will of course have home advantage, and under the Logacta system, where both teams are in the same division of football, they will be rolling the blue die for the home team and the red die for the away team. And under the current FA rules, there are no replays at this stage, so we will have extra time if the scores are tied. That will be determined by 2 rolls of the yellow die. If after that the scores are still level, we will have a penalty shootout. Should we get to that stage, we can ratchet up the tension with this special die. 3 sides are green, that represents a goal. 3 sides of red, no goal, and we'll be rolling that alternately throughout the penalty shootout. So that should make it even more exciting. After the end of the quarterfinals, we'll need to do a draw for determining who meets who in the semi-finals, which will be played on neutral ground. For those semi-finals, both teams will be rolling blue. Again, we will have the yellow die for extra time and the special die should we need penalty shootouts. I'll be using die to determine the draw for the semi-finals. A red die will represent the winners of the Chelsea-Leicester tie, blue for Newcastle or Man City, yellow for Sheffield United or Arsenal, and green for Norwich or Man United. And we were literally pulling those die out of a hat. But more of that in just a moment. It's time to get those 4 quarterfinals underway. First match, Leicester v Chelsea. So here we go, the first die of the day. It's blue for Leicester City. And that's a 4. That's going to be tough for Chelsea. And just a 1. So a 4-1 victory for Leicester City. They move forward to the semi-final draw, as I say, to be represented by the red die. Our second match, Newcastle United v Man City. And Newcastle will be rolling the blue die. And that's 2. Man City runners-up, of course, in the Premier League, and they'll be rolling the red die. And that's 1. So a shock result there. Newcastle 2, Man City 1. Newcastle move into the draw for the semi-finals. Our third match, it's Sheffield United. Did extremely well in their first season in the Premier League, and they are rolling the blue die, of course. They're up against Arsenal. Had 2 home wins so far. That's 1 for Sheffield United. Arsenal 2. An away win for Arsenal there. They will be represented by the yellow die in the draw for the semi-finals. And our final quarter-final match, Norwich, who were relegated from the Premier League, finished dead bottom against Man United, who have a Europa League place. So Norwich rolling the blue die. 1. Man United 2. So did expect Man United to win there, but you can never tell, can you? So Man United make their way through into the semi-finals. And it's time now to make that draw. So these are the 4 die that will be popping into the hat. Just a reminder, it is red for Leicester City, blue for Newcastle, yellow for Arsenal, and green for Man United. The next ties, of course, are played on neutral grounds, so let's pop those dies into the rather seasonal Christmas pudding hat. Get a bit of a shake up. And the first club out of the hat are blue, that's Newcastle United. And the next one out of the hat, green, Man United. And the other 2 die in the hat, let's just pull those out to make sure. There we go, green and yellow, and the hat is empty. Oh, sorry, green and yellow, red and yellow, so that is Leicester playing Arsenal. Okay, so let's get rid of the red die, we won't need that anymore. Playing on neutral territory, both teams will be rolling the blue die. Again, if we need penalties, we will, extra time, we'll be rolling the yellow die. Penalties, we have the special die. There we go, just lost my rolling cup. So it's blue die, so everything to play for here. Newcastle, 1. Man United, 1. So 1-1 after normal time, and this is where the extra time die comes into play. It's the yellow die. Newcastle, 0. Man United, 1. So that is a 2-1 victory to Man United after extra time, and Man U goes through to the final. The second semi-final then, Leicester City against Arsenal. Leicester rolling first, that's a 1. Arsenal, and that's another 1. So again, 1-1 after normal time. The extra time die comes into play. Leicester City, 0. Arsenal, 1. So exactly the same scenario as the previous match. Arsenal win 2-1 after extra time. So, very quickly, we're through to the FA Cup final. The same rules apply. Obviously, Wembley, neutral ground, so both teams rolling blue. Man United first then. And that's a 0. Arsenal have a great chance to win the FA Cup yet again. And they do. 2-0 victory to Arsenal. So, didn't need our penalty shootout die after all. And I was hoping for a lovely, exciting penalty shootout just to perhaps top off this series of videos. But that's it then. So, Arsenal are the FA Cup winners for the 2019 to 2020 competition. Man United, runners-up. Before we go, let's just recap for the results of the matches we've played. In the quarter-finals, Leicester City were 4-1 victors at home to Chelsea. Newcastle surprised everyone with a 2-1 victory against Man City. And the final 2 games were away victories. Arsenal 2-1 at Sheffield United, and Man United beat relegated Norwich by the same score. And for the semi-finals, both Man United and Arsenal took extra time to secure 2-1 victories over Newcastle and Leicester respectively. And in the final it was quite straightforward. Man United had a chance to equal Arsenal's 13 trophy wins in the competition, but in the end the London club had a fairly straightforward 2-0 victory to make it 14 titles for them. So that's just about it then. Congratulations to Arsenal, winners of the FA Cup for the 14th time, and commiseration to runners-up Manchester United. If you found that video exciting, you might like to look at some or all of our 18 videos in which we complete the FA Premier League. There's 2 hours of thrilling football simulation action. So all that really remains for me to say is thank you for watching, and we look forward to you seeing us again very soon here on Not Just Disney. Bye for now.